The following session was recorded live in San Antonio, Texas for the 2003 CALLERLAB Conference. This is tape number 20, By Laws Change.
Good morning. We have a room full of people here. My name is Jerry Reed, and we're here to discuss the upcoming bylaws change that will be discussed and voted on at the Wednesday morning meeting. With me on the panel this morning on my far left is Jim Mayo from Hempstead, New Hampshire. Hempstead, all right. And also on the panel is Clark Baker from Belmont, Massachusetts. The purpose of this session is to provide you with some information concerning the bylaws change, which will be presented, discussed, and voted on during the annual business meeting tomorrow, Wednesday, April 16th, year 2003, for the tape. Clark will be providing some comments on the pro side of the issue, that is, in favor of the change, and Jim will provide some comments on the con side of the issue, and that is opposed to the change. We will only provide brief comments and then open the floor for your discussion. We are here primarily to get your input and to provide you the opportunity to voice your opinion on this change. This is a very significant change which will drastically reduce the calling requirements to obtain and retain active or voting member category. The motion that will be presented, discussed, and voted on reads as follows. Be it resolved that the definition of active in Article 2, Section 1, A1 be changed to read, active is defined as calling an average of 12 dance sessions per year during the previous 3 years. And I've said this is a very significant change in the bylaws and the requirements to obtain and to retain voting category. We may not want to use that because of the... there's a tremendous difference in the volume. We'll probably just use this one mic. We would ask that Clark go first.
Jerry, I'd like to be sure that I understand how big an impact this is likely to have. Am I correct in my belief that this effectively says that everyone except apprentices are likely to be eligible for full membership? And if so, how big an increase in our voting membership do you perceive this might make?
My perception of the change is basically the same. I would suspect that we do not have very many associate members who are not calling at least 12 dances a year. The number is somewhat less than 200, and we have just over 900 voting members now, so it could increase it by, what is that, about a fifth or so.
It's a 20% increase.
Correct. Those are rough numbers, yeah.
So this is Clark Baker, and I'm speaking for the change.
Correct.
The 50 dance standard that we have today is too difficult to achieve in the current modern square dance activity. It restricts the growth potential of CALLERLAB in a period when maintaining membership strength is increasingly difficult. The standard was established more than 30 years ago during a period of peak growth of modern square dancing. It's much more difficult now for a new caller to achieve the 50 dance level of activity than it has been any time since the standard was established. Many traditional callers who don't teach classes will never reach the 50-year level of activity. CALLERLAB has been and is making an effort to reach out to include traditional and party dance callers. The present standard denies many of them any possibility of full membership. The only practical effect of this change is to allow callers with less experience to vote for members of the Board of Governors. Associate members, those who don't meet our current 50-year dance requirement, cannot vote for the Board of Governors, but they do have the privilege of committee membership and are now eligible to vote on committee business. A high standard of professional experience is a wonderful thing, but it would be of little value if our membership shrinks so we cannot support the work we do. As square dancing has declined, some of our full members are cutting back. Perhaps their clubs now only meet once or twice a month. Perhaps they're no longer teaching lessons. We want to keep them as full members. We want to encourage callers who call party dances, and someone doing a 12 dances a year has experiences that we want to hear about and share. We want to encourage traditional square and contra callers to join and most of them don't have regular gigs. A new caller, with this membership change, a new caller will have to have called 36 dances to become a full member. While this isn't a lot, this caller will have some experiences to share. We should have an interest to learn more. We want them to be part of CALLERLAB. Thank you.
Thank you, Clark. Are there any comments concerning? What we'll do is go ahead and listen, get Jim's input, and then we'll open it for discussion.
The 50 dances per year standard for membership, full membership, was intended to ensure that those callers who make the decisions affecting the world of modern square dancing are competent to make the decisions. That competence requires more experience than is provided by this new standard. Callers with only 12 dance per year experience are not teaching classes. They do not understand the technical requirements of our profession enough to make wise judgments. CALLERLAB intends to welcome traditional and party dance callers into membership, but they should have worked more than 36 nights before they are considered competent. Increasing or even maintaining membership is a problem, but it is bad judgment to lower the membership standards to solve this problem. Doing so may disappoint many who worked hard to accomplish that standard. They might lose interest in maintaining that membership. Lowering a standard is easy, but raising it again is not. If we are successful at creating a rebirth of modern square dancing, we will have a very difficult time reestablishing the present experience requirement. We shouldn't dilute the standards that have made CALLERLAB square dancing's professional leadership.
Very good. Thank you, Jim. Do we have any comments from our floor? And please put them on the microphone when you do that.
Jim Wass, Riverdale, Maryland, and I had a question before making any comments about the genesis of this initiative. How did it start? What are all of the... we heard some of the arguments in favor, but why are we really going after this?
This was an initiative from the board, and the board discussion really centered around the points that Clark has raised. We had quite a bit of discussion about this during the board meeting, and the final decision was the motion that we have before us now. So it came from the board. They were concerned with the issues as Clark has raised them, and that's how we got to where we are now.
Okay, Jim Wass again, Riverdale, Maryland, and when I first read the wording of the motion in the mail, it was I was a little confused about what was going on, and then when I read it again, arriving at convention here, I was more saddened than anything else that we seem to be turning to this. And does 12 have any magic? Need we have any experience requirement at all? But after discussing it with some of the folks, I'm wondering if maybe an absolute number is not what we need to do, but we need to evaluate individually the experience of applicants for membership. And that would be the way I would see that we could possibly find professionalism in a 12-dance-a-year caller and not necessarily in another. I see this not just as answering the current demographics of our square dance population. I see this as also answering the mail for some callers who aren't applying themselves sufficiently really to establish themselves as professionals.
Spoken like a true chairman of an accreditation committee.
Yes, some good points. The overall membership of CALLERLAB has really not changed a lot over the past 3 to 4 years. We're pretty where we are. We are pretty much maintaining the membership numbers that we have. So this particular one may or may not entice new members, but it would be primarily an internal change.
Since nobody else wants to speak just yet, Jim Watts, Riverdale, Maryland.
Let me respond to one.
But first, Jerry Reed.
Thank you. The idea of individual, determining on an individual basis, seems like a difficult thing to do. I don't know that it would be insurmountable, but I guess from the accreditation committee could find some way to do that. But it seems like a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah, I was joking when I said spoken like a chairman of the accreditation committee, but indeed that's what we have. And I don't want to turn this into an accreditation committee meeting, but it's for historical purposes we should be aware that CALLERLAB tried way back in the beginning with its accreditation process to define the qualities of adequate square dance caller performance and gave up on the job. Jim's committee has since made another attempt at defining a subcategory of that, the quality of teaching. But even now, we do not have any agreement on what it takes to be an adequate caller, the standard that you're asking that we apply. The reason we got the original 50 dances per year was that the original accreditation committee determined that the only measure of caller performance was whether or not you could get hired, whether you could get people to come back and dance to you on a regular basis. And the number 50 was picked arbitrarily, truly, 50 weeks a year, so you call once a week, and that if you can get people to dance to you that often and still find a square out in front of you, then you must not be an inadequate caller. That was the origin of the original 50 number. What we're talking about here is whether the change of that number to 12 still defines adequate.
Okay, and some of you have been knowing where I've been going with this. I have had discussions during the convention so far with several other callers. I haven't found anybody yet who is enthusiastic about the proposal. I have found some who think that, maybe it should happen because maybe, as Clark ably argued, there are fewer opportunities and there are people out there that we would want to attract into membership who have this lower experience level. But to arbitrarily push the number down to 12, that seems to be what disturbs most of the people that I talk to. And in one of those discussions, the first one I had at convention, I asked I talked to the Sobalskis. They asked me what I thought. I asked them what they thought. 3 minutes later, I asked them, have we just crafted an amendment to the motion? And I'm going to go ahead and read what might be an amendment that I put forward tomorrow, depending upon how the discussion goes on the motion. And so the new motion would read, be it resolved that the definition of active in article, etc., be changed to read, active is defined as calling an average of 50 dance sessions per year during the previous 3 years. That is how it words right now, with the added wording, the 50 dance requirement may be reduced in individual cases where application for reduction is made and the applicant establishes to the satisfaction of the membership committee, or insert whatever body is appropriate in there, that calling opportunities in the applicant's area are insufficient to permit area callers to consistently call 50 dance sessions per year. The applicant has called a minimum number of dance sessions per year appropriate to the opportunity available in the applicant's area, parenthetical, never to be less than 12 dance sessions per year, and the applicant has demonstrated alternative involvement in square dance calling.
That sounds interesting.
And complicated.
Yes, and complicated. As you say, depending on the direction that the discussion goes, that would certainly be something that we would discuss for sure. Any comments from? Oh, okay. I want to also, for the tape, let you know that we are not having a small majority of the group dominate the discussion. Our group is rather small, so you will be hearing from the same people several times.
Bob Jones, Troy, Ohio. Clarify for me, did we not change some requirements sometime back here? Do we feel we've had ample enough time to see if that's going to work? How many years is what? This would be the first full year of that? Second full year. Okay, I didn't know where we were on the time standards as far as getting everything out to the people. Have we noticed any increase there?
Actually, right, this will be the second full year, and the change was to eliminate the convention attendance requirement. We established what we call an alternate involvement requirement. So there's three ways that people can become active and maintain active membership by satisfying any one of those three. And the three are to attend a school taught by a accredited caller coach, CALLERLAB accredited caller coach, to teach a CALLERLAB program, dance program, or to have three active members certify that this person should become an active member. The increase from that by laws change has not been tremendous. We have received less than 24. I would estimate somewhere between 12 and 20 applicants for that opportunity. I'm not sure whether it's because there's not enough interest to do that, or whether people are not aware of the change. They should be aware of it because we've published it several times. But we have received some, but it's not been a tremendous impact. The other change, the other circumstance from that change also was that once a person attends one convention, there's no more continuing convention attendance requirement. So that was a significant change also.
Jerry, again, trying to clarify the numbers, I think our total membership is something just under 2,000. If I add the numbers, the 900 presently full qualified members and the 200 who might be added by this change only adds up to 1,100. Are the rest all apprentices?
Wait a minute. Actually the numbers of, and I should have brought those numbers with me. Actually, we're about 50-50 of voting and non-voting members.
So the potential is to double.
We have about, the 200 would be closer to the number of apprentices that we have, which is really about 100 or so. So obviously the apprentices would not be able to take advantage. So we're probably talking another at least 800 people who
nearly double the voting members.
That's correct. Yeah. Which would make reaching a quorum at convention. Now it's nearly impossible. It would be as near to impossible as you could get, probably, to get a quorum at convention. Yeah. Correct. Yeah. We're building the case. Any other comments from? Yes.
Dave Sutter from Dubuque, Iowa. I just have one question. How has the membership been doing the last few years? Have we seen a drastic drop, or it stayed about the same, or coming up?
The overall membership numbers have really stayed pretty steady over the past 3-4 years, perhaps even longer than that. Each year at renewal time, we're down a couple of hundred or something like that. And throughout the year, we pick up many of those members who do decide then to renew. We're picking up. We are getting new members all of the time. Throughout the year, we get new members. Members who have been members in the past and have come back. The change of the convention requirement may have influenced some of that, because we have people who come back. They attended a convention back in the 80s. And they dropped out for whatever reason, maybe in the late 80s or early 90s or something. So after a hiatus of several years, then they are rejoining. But the overall numbers are staying fairly consistent.
Don Beck, Massachusetts. I apologize for being late, but I wonder if somebody would recap something very quickly for me. I normally would sit quietly and just live with it, but being 20% of the audience, and it was 25 when I first thought of the question. We're talking about the reasons for active member and this random number, which is as random as 12 months out of the year, calling once a month. I'm just wondering, active member means for joining, maintaining, voting.
Voting for the board, basically.
Okay.
Put that on the tape there.
So active means voting. Okay.
It effectively means voting for the Board of Governors, because a non-full member, a non-active member, associate, now is allowed to take part in committee business and vote on committee business. So the only votes where this would apply are voting for this bylaws change, for instance, voting for members of the Board of Governors, and taking part in the post-convention vote to affirm or break down, discharge the convention vote on any issue. So in terms of the committee business, this is not going to make a significant change. It will only make a change in those three areas.
Several of the, Jim Wass again from Riverdale, Maryland, several of the committees have requirements for committee membership other than simply CALLERLAB membership. The advance committee comes to mind, where you have to have a 50 advance dance per year rate. If we were to reduce the active membership requirement, I would be tempted in my committee to reconsider and possibly offer that we might want to have a requirement more stringent than the requirement for membership for participation on the accreditation committee. Just something I would think about, and I'm thinking that many of the other committees would want to go that direction as well.
Clark Baker. While I'm for this motion, in a future year, I could see trying to change the requirement that you vote on committee business to restrict that to full members. If we've made it easier to have full membership, I'd like to see only full members voting on committee business. But that's not what this motion says. That's just my personal opinion.
That change would require another bylaws change to
bylaws.
Yeah, we seem to be pretty good. This year though we've gone a couple of years without one, so we're doing good.
It would be possible. It would be possible to accomplish that at the same time with an amendment to this bylaws change.
Interesting.
That is true. I have always been one who likes slow and deliberate, and give people a chance to think about the impact of what might happen. This will be the third, maybe the fourth time that we've mentioned it. It's important for the tape that the people who hear the tape realize and tell other people also that associate members can in fact join committees and vote on committee business, as long as, like Jim says, there are other restrictions, the advance committee, the challenge committee. There are some committees who do have other prerequisites for people to get on the committees.
Don Beck, Chilmark, Massachusetts again. I'm looking for clarifications again. Associate members, the next version down. Dues are the same. BMI ASCAP licensing is the same. Okay. So the only thing is different is you don't get to vote on bylaws and such. Chilmark, where I live, is a town of about 800. We don't have too many square dance clubs there. And I currently don't even qualify for the 12 dances a year. Although I've been a member for 29 years of the association. So,
thank you, Don. For folks who are in your situation, who have been long-term members and have attended conventions in the past, and now the requirement is for only one convention, the bylaws allow what we call longevity membership, so that long-term members who have been active members for a long time can maintain that active membership no matter how much calling they do. So you could effectively, according to the bylaws, go down to 0 and still maintain the active membership.
distinction clear. Tell them what their cost is. I can if you don't.
Yes.
The current situation is that if you have been an active member for 8 years and attended 3 conventions, you are thereafter exempt from the frequency of calling definition, the active member definition based on frequency of calling. It is under that I'm able to continue because my calling frequency has dropped below 50 a year, but I meet that other requirement rather adequately.
This is Clark Baker again, speaking in favor of the motion. I guess I have 2 points from this discussion. One is, we seem to, if we have these categories of membership, everyone wants the good category, the top one. And the fact that we divide it up, I think it's okay, but we still seem to, upset. We don't really disenfranchise, but there's some word I'm looking for there that just irks some of these members who are associates and want to be full. And even though it may not seem like a big deal to us, in hallway conversations, emails, when they're grousing to their friends and buddies or whatever, that kind of thing comes up. And putting something like this in place will remove that one impediment, even though it really shouldn't exist and isn't that big a deal. Many callers organizations in the local area that I'm familiar with have 2 categories of membership. And frankly, many callers who are brand new, they don't expect to come in as a full member. What's the difference in a local scene? Sometimes it's whether you're allowed to call at the local convention or not, or something like that. I'll stop there.
Let me point out that reducing this to 12 does not do away with the requirement. You still have to do 12 dances a year for 3 years. So you aren't going to get a brand new caller in here to become, even if you reduce it to 12. We have that limitation anyway, but
as a clarification, when we say, the way it's worded, it says an average of 12 dances over 3 years.
It says 12 dances per year for the last 3 years.
12 dances a year for 3 years. That's great, because I'd hate for someone just to come in and say, I called 36 dances, and over 3 years, that's the average.
The new one does not.
The amendment does not? Okay.
The old wording says 50 dances per year averaged over the last 3 years. The new motion does not say that. It says 12 dance sessions per year during the previous 3 years. So, an important point also is that people calling under less than 3 years will not qualify for this in any case because they are now apprentice members. So our members who are calling less than 3 years are in fact apprentice members, and when they have passed the 3-year mark, then they would be eligible for this. I do want to clarify one thing on the longevity. When we did away with the convention requirement, the longevity now says that a member has either been an active member in good standing for 8 years or is an active member as defined in Section 1. So the attendance at 3 conventions is down to 1, or having been an active member for 8 years. So even if they have not attended a convention but they've done the alternate involvement requirement and they maintain that for 8 years, then they are exempt from the calling requirement, which I think is a good thing. I'm not sure if I can I voice either for or against? I'm definitely against this amendment. I believe that the 50 requirement is a valid requirement for the points that Jim brought out earlier.
Bob Jones, Troy, Ohio. Again, I need a little more information here. Over the last 5 years, can you tell me whether we've had an up or trend or a downward trend of the apprentices to attendance of CALLERLAB?
Attendance or membership?
Attendance.
By apprentices or?
Yes.
On average, just
yeah.
something to look at.
The apprentices are the ones who've been calling less than 3 years. That's who you're asking about. We have never had a large number of those, and at this convention, I think there's only 1. I can't remember when we had more than 5, at least since I've been involved over the past 4 years. So it's always a relatively small number, very relatively small.
Slightly off topic, but I think important to our organization. We should look at what do we do to encourage new callers, both to become new callers and to come and join CALLERLAB, because I don't see a lot of new callers in my area. I think we do a lot of things. We sponsor caller training at the National Convention. We have an apprentice category. I'm sure Jerry can name a few others. But I think that we're doing some stuff. Oh, and the other thing is, it's hard to become a new caller. How many dances do you get? How often do you get a chance to call? Oh, and we have scholarships, both at the CALLERLAB level and certainly at several different local levels in New England are possible. And often they're hard to give away. I mean, we need new people. Getting to become a new caller is really tough, and only having to do this 12 dances a year, that would still have been a high standard when I started calling. I mean, when I started calling, I was lucky to call 1 tip a week at a dance workshop I organized, and then maybe I could, get hired to do 1 dance a year, and then 2 dances a year, and then it slowly built. Finally, I'm calling 1 dance a week, but that took a long time to get there. And if you look at it, when you're young and trying to do it, you're like, I'm not going to be able to become a full member for 10 years, 15 years maybe.
Jerry, again, a question. Is it your impression that the 800 associate members that we have all call less than 50 dances a year?
I should have brought all of those numbers with me. The number of under 50 and over 50 licenses that we issue is about even. There are slightly more of the over 50 dance licenses that we issue. So those associate members, and we also have some active members who are, so I don't know that I probably have to really do another search to really tie the numbers together.
I can't think of any other reason why they wouldn't.
Don Beck again. A couple of fine points on thinking about the wording of things. One is the new wording that you had talked about dance sessions. It didn't say dances. Is dance session defined anyway? Because there are callers that will go call 1 tip here and 1 tip there, and to them, so if you call 1 tip at your local dance a week, that's a session for you. Okay, for the tape, I'm told by the panel that counts, which is very interesting. The other thing is, everybody seemed happy that the wording on the new amendment said X number of times per year rather than averaged over 3 years. If we don't pass this amendment, should we consider going back and changing the old wording to say 50 times a year rather than 50 times averaged over the year?
I've not announced my name, I guess, each time, but this is Jerry Reed again. That one I would be against because, well, not necessarily. Don says to not rock the boat, and living on an island, he knows.
Power's greater than I rock
as Clark has pointed out, as we learn to call and as we get more and more into call, our calling experience grows. I mean, that's the idea. So a person may, in fact, start by calling 10 dances a year, and then the next year get hired in a lot, and then go to 50 dances a year, and then really get popular, and go to 100 or 200, something like that. And again, I could say dances, but it's dance events. It's sessions. It's a dance. It's a workshop. It's an exhibition at a convention. So the average I like, because over the last, that means that a person can reach that goal by starting low, I guess is the main point I want to get to.
I just thought of 2 other things that CALLERLAB's doing to help and encourage new callers. One is at this session we have a newer callers panel or session, and I remember last year one of the newer under 5-year callers was asking for. We want a room, a place where we can meet and talk about the issues of what it's like to be a newer caller who's been calling with, say, under 5 years experience. And I think that's a good thing that we have an offer. What we need to do is somehow get more newer callers in and make sure they come and know it's worth coming to the convention, and also show up at their local callers organizations.
An excellent argument against the notion you just gave us, Clark. This is Jim Wass again. Since if we can do more to push those newer callers over the bar, we don't have to lower the bar quite so much.
Yeah, I agree with that. This is Jerry Reed again. I agree with that also, and as Jim pointed out earlier in his comments, lowering the standard is easy, but raising it after you've done that is extremely difficult. So this is, as I've said in my opening statement also, in my view, this is a very major issue. I have, as home office administrators, I have concerns also how to administer this, because right now, if a person, the requirement is 50 dances a year. If they buy a license for over 50 dances a year, I then say this person is calling over 50 dances a year. If they buy a license for under 50 dances a year, then I say this person is not calling over 50 dances a year. So it's administratively it is very clean the way it is now. That's not necessarily an excellent idea to not approve it. However, I do have to consider the administrative burden that this might bring to us. And I shouldn't say burden, I should say the administrative challenge that this would bring to the home office. Do we have any other comments from the floor? Chuck is sitting back there. Chuck Hardy is...
Well, I just make one comment.
Okay.
On the microphone, please. The other 20% of the audience is Chuck Hardy, and I'm against the motion. And if I back up any further, I'll pull the equipment off.
Okay. And Don Beck has another.
Actually, can we take a straw vote? I'm curious. I think I see how the feeling is, but I'm curious what it is here.
Okay, we can do that. All who at this point are in favor of this motion, please signify by raising your hand. We have 2. And those who are opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, I voted. Can I vote? Yeah, I'm a member. I can vote. And Don is a voting member, so he didn't vote. He abstained, and we have an whatever it's called, a non-voter.
Clark Baker, I do acknowledge that kind of in any organization, potentially like a fraternity where, and this is not quite the right analogy, but where you may go through some sort of hazing thing to get to where you are, it's hard for those people to say, I want to let new people in and not make them go through what I had to go through. And I think there will be some resistance to adopting this motion among the membership, among those who are like, I had to call 50 dances a year, I did this, why can't someone new out there meet the same standard? And I think the answer to that is square dancing has changed. We have many fewer people, and we're trying to encourage different ways for people to enjoy the activity, and we're going to need different leadership in the calling leadership to do that.
It's worth noting that when this standard was applied, we were at the peak of the growth of modern square dancing. When we developed it in 1974, 76 I guess it was that this rule came in, that was just about the biggest point in the explosion of modern square dancing. And anybody that was interested in calling could get a job teaching a class and making square dancing 50 times a year without having to be a very competent performer. That clearly is no longer true. And so there is some justification there. The strongest argument that I can see against doing it is Jerry's argument of the administration. It would require us to take the word of people, because we have no way of verifying. We have occasionally in the past challenged the claim to be calling 50. The challenge gets raised by somebody as an ethical issue from outside of the organization. We don't initiate a challenge. But tracking it down then is a very difficult process, and generates all kinds of antagonism. Basically, we have to take somebody's word for it. Jerry has a measure now which makes them commit not only with a statement but also with dollars. It's interesting to speculate on how many of those who are associate members claiming less than 50 dances a year may in fact be calling a lot more than that.
From my personal knowledge, I know there are at least 5. And there are a lot of callers that I don't know what their calling schedule is. So based on that, I would suspect that we have more than 5. Clark does raise an interesting... Yep.
Based on that, in Europe, they don't have to declare anything anywhere outside the U.S. They don't have to declare the number of dances. Is there a difference in the ratio of full to associate membership outside the U.S. versus inside? I don't expect you to know the answer to that off the top of your head, but
that's an interesting point, and I'm trying to recall just the numbers that I've seen from in passing, and I just don't recall. But there are many callers in Europe and outside the United States who, in fact, on their register, because we do ask that now on their registration form, how many dances a year do you call? And there are many who do, in fact, say 50. However, it could also be, hopefully it's a moral issue and say, well, I'm not going to say I call over 50 if I don't. However, it might also be an ego thing that would say I call 10, but I'm going to tell them I call 70. So that could be something else. I'm not sure. As Jim has said, we would have to totally rely on the membership application. We would have to rely on several things that right now we don't have to. One of those is that people would actually fill in the number that they call. Not only there's no way for us to verify that the number is accurate, but if they don't fill in a number, then I really have a challenge of what to do then. So it's really the administration of this change is pretty mind-boggling. Earlier, Clark had mentioned the hazing attitude, and I would suspect there probably is some of that. However, when we changed the convention requirement, which passed much easier than I thought it was going to, there was not a tremendous increase in members. There wasn't a big flood of people who came and took advantage of that. So I'm not sure that this would accomplish a goal. I would suspect a goal of this is to increase membership. And the other change that we made, which was in response to vocal complaints, I guess, that I don't belong to CALLERLAB because you got to go to a convention and all of that. When we did away with that, we did not get a tremendous increase of numbers. So it seems to me that on the surface, initially looking at that the argument that I'm not a member of CALLERLAB because I have to kind of go to a convention doesn't hold any water. I mean, they're not members of CALLERLAB for some other reason. So it could be that we like to make excuses for the things that we don't want to do, and I shouldn't say excuses. We like to make rationales for the things that we don't want to do, and I suspect that this might be in the same situation. The amendment that Jim talked about earlier, Jim Wass talked about earlier, is interesting. However, as Jim Mayo pointed out, it's not only interesting but very complex and something that would require a considerable amount of administration. But I do like the possibility. I will say I find it very interesting, that amendment.
Again, speaking about that amendment, do you have a sense, I mean, you already have the alternative service stuff to administrate, and if you only encountered, say, a dozen or so of those, has that been a big problem? If you hit a dozen of Jim's type of people, do you think that would be an okay amount?
I'm sorry. Yes, that would certainly be. We could handle that without any problem. Even 200, we could. However, it would depend on the system that was set up and who who the body was that was going to review that.
Yeah, no doubt something like this would not be implemented next month. It would be something, in fact, when would this bylaws change take effect? When would the first applicant under the new rules, whatever they be, happen?
The bylaws change would in fact take effect as soon as the mail vote is completed and reported to the membership, which would be probably in the fall issue of Direction, possibly the summer issue of Direction. So it would become effective then, and we could begin at that time to see applications. Although, based on past experience with the things that we publish in Direction and then getting responses, I wouldn't expect any responses probably before the convention next year. But it would become effective as soon as the mail vote is completed.
Summing up my views after the discussion that I've heard, I'm less supportive for this amendment now than I was when I came in. Even though I was assigned the negative side on this, I was personally positive. The more we talk about it, the more I find myself shifting to the other side and saying, this may be much ado about nothing. That we've got half of our membership, our associates, who I've not heard a lot of complaint from. This was generated by a discussion on the board. It did not come from outside objections. There were not a bunch of associates who came to us and said, hey, how come I'm not a full member? And the administrative complexity of it is a strong negative as far as I'm concerned, combined with the fact that it makes very little practical difference other than voting for the Board of Governors. That's a significant function in CALLERLAB. But the value, the real work of CALLERLAB is still done in committees and is available for involvement by all of the people who don't meet this standard or choose not to meet this standard. And the administrative disadvantage doesn't seem to me offset by the ego stroking, if you will, that letting them in. I'm also in favor of recognizing that there is a difference between those who do ply the trade once a week and those who do it less frequently. There is a great deal of experience education that comes as a result of taking part in the activity of actually standing up on stage and telling people what to do once a week on average. The original judgment that we could not identify and define good calling other than by the acceptance of your performance by the customers may still be the only valid way of determining the quality or the standard of performance in our trade, in our profession. Sorry about that. So I find myself shifting to the point where I may very well vote against it. Which was a position I'm supposed to support.
Good. We did our job.
Jim convinced himself.
Do we have any other comments or concerns, perhaps, from the board, from the panel, or from anybody in the audience? Don. Don't stop now.
Just a minor concern that those people voting on it tomorrow will not have heard this discussion.
That's not a minor point. That's a major point. Yes.
I think we've developed some points. I think we've developed some points to express on the floor, though, and we've tested some of them by throwing them at each other, and we have a few better arguments that were made, and we can pull those in tomorrow.
Absolutely true. And I'm not sure how unbiased or biased I'm supposed to be on this, but I am a dues-paying member, so I will be expressing my views tomorrow also. And Jim's point is good. We are a small group, but whether you're for or against, you've heard the arguments for both sides, and the discussion for both sides. And I would encourage you to speak those views tomorrow, either for or against, whichever side you choose to support. And as Jim has said, also we've raised a lot of different points also, and if we could each bring a different point rather than each of us reiterating the same points over and over, that would be a much better system.
Don Beck, quick question. Jim, you said the amendment you may bring is a possible function of what we're talking about today. What is your feeling right now?
Whether or not you're going to make that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I stand against the motion, and right now, if the discussion goes as it went today, and I see the floor generally favoring knocking down the motion, then I'm not going to put it forward. If it looks like there's some if it looks like it's even or tending toward passing, I am going to offer this amendment. And you weren't here when I first read it, and I'll let you look at it later. Oh, you were? Okay.
All right. It looks like we've almost exhausted our views on this, and like I say, we've all. Joanne Mayo has just let us know that she has some extra room keys. So, if anybody is missing a room key, see Joanne. All right, that's. For the tape also, just another reason to come to CALLERLAB Convention. It is unbelievable what can happen here, and unpredictable also. Just as a recap, again, we will be discussing this motion. There are views, I'm sure, that we will hear both for and against the motion. The advantage of being at the convention is that you are able to hear those views. You're able to hear the discussion, the pros and the cons. Even though you can, the voting members can take advantage or can vote on the issue after the convention. Being here and hearing the discussion is an important part of that process. I want to thank the panel, Jim Mayo and Clark Baker, and I especially thank you all for being with us. Let's a nice round of applause for everybody. Hey! Thank you very much, and have a good rest of the convention. We'll see you tomorrow.